The navigation display, ND, can present the pilots with a lot of useful data to assist in the safe operation of the aircraft. Because the ND gives the pilots a visual presentation of where the aircraft is in relation to airfields, nav aids, etc., the operation of the aircraft is made easier. In this module, we will use the Captain's ND. There are 5 navigation display modes available on the ND. They are selected by the mode selector on the EFIS control panel. In addition, an engine display mode presents the engine parameters. It is used in some ECAM failure cases. There are 3 basic navigation display modes, which can be displayed in the background. Rose, a 360-degree compass rose. Note, for training purposes, the other information has been dimmed. Arc, a 90-degree segment. Plan, a map with north at the top. Before moving on to look at the individual modes, let's quickly look at some common information. The ground speed, GS, and the true airspeed, TAS, are permanently displayed in the top left corner. Below the speed indications, the wind data is presented. Wind direction, true north, wind speed, and an arrow to indicate the wind direction with respect to magnetic north. Here, wind from 60 degrees at 52 knots. Aircraft magnetic heading is given by a fixed yellow lubber line against the moving compass rose. Selected heading or track is shown by a blue triangle or blue numbers if out of display range. This is similar to the PFD. Actual track is depicted by a green track diamond. Range marks are displayed by white dotted lines, while range values are depicted in blue. The display range can be adjusted using the range selector. Select 320 mile range. You can see now more of your flight plan, and the range values have changed accordingly. Let's study the ND individual modes. The ROSE ILS mode is a raw data mode providing standard localizer and glide slope deviation bars. Other information is displayed to assist you. An ILS course pointer, ILS information. Select ROSE VOR mode. The ROSE VOR mode is another raw data display. On the display, there is now a course pointer and a lateral deviation bar for the VOR. In this case, VOR 1. Like ROSE ILS, the information about the tuned frequency, the selected course, and the nav aid identifier, here Papa Alpha Sierra PAS, is displayed in the top right-hand corner. Let's now display the VOR
Select
bearing
VOR
1. Notice that there is a white VOR bearing pointer and VOR information associated with the pointer. The number 1 pointer is represented by a single line. Let's change the selection on the EFIS control panel to display ADF1 instead of VOR1. This is achieved by moving the number 1 ADF VOR selector to ADF.
Select Automatic Direction Finder 1.
The white VOR bearing pointer has been replaced by a green ADF bearing pointer. The VOR information on the bottom left of the display has been replaced by ADF1 information. Notice that the selection of the pointer has not removed the deviation information for VOR1. Now let's display the ADF2 bearing pointer.
Select Automatic Direction Finder 2. The ADF2 bearing pointer is now displayed, represented by a double-lined arrow. At the bottom of the display, there is information on the selected nav aids. Notice that as with most things on the aircraft, number 1 is on the left and number 2 on the right.
Notice the tiny underlined M beside the nav aid information, which indicate that each ADF has been manually selected by the pilots. You will learn more about the nav aid selection in the navigation chapter. To see the effect of the ADF VOR selectors, click on forward arrow to select both VOR bearing pointers on. Click on the forward arrow. The two white VOR bearing pointers are now visible. You have seen the two raw data displays. Now let's look at the RoseNav display. What is now on display is a mapped view of the area surrounding the aircraft. On the EFIS control panel, the range selector is set at 80 miles, which is the distance from the bottom to the top of the compass rose. The green line represents the flight plan that is programmed in the FMGS. This will be discussed in the autoflight modules. The information contained in the top right-hand corner of the display relates to the next waypoint, also called the two-way point. In this example, the two-way point is Papa Alpha Sierra. The information is track to waypoint, distance to go, estimated time of arrival at waypoint. The normal mode for the cruise phase is the arc mode. Click on the forward arrow to select the arc mode and a range of 160 nautical miles. Click on the forward arrow. Using the push buttons at the top of the EFIS control panel, additional information can be displayed. For example, airports that are in the displayed range. Select Airport. A green light illuminates in the push button. On the display, the airports contained in the aircraft's database and within the area are shown. This is a useful feature when considering diversions. Select NDB. All the NDB contained in the database and within the display range are shown. Select VOR-D. All the VOR contained in the database and within the display range are shown. Select Constraint. Only the constraints related to your flight plan are displayed. Speed, altitude, time. Select Waypoint. The display has started to become very cluttered now that all the waypoints are shown. Select 40 nautical miles. As you can see, the display is a little less cluttered. Now let's look at the final display mode. Select Plan Mode. In this mode, the flight plan legs are shown on a true north orientated map. The center of the display is a waypoint. Here, the two-way point. The aircraft is displayed in relation to that waypoint. In the example shown, the display is centered on waypoint Papa Alpha Sierra, and the aircraft is heading towards that waypoint. Deselect Waypoint. Now let's increase the range to 320 miles. Select 320 nautical miles. Since plan mode is centered on a waypoint, the aircraft symbol may or may not be displayed. To demonstrate this, we have shifted the display for you and centered it on the waypoint Golf Echo November. You will see later on how to do that. Notice that the aircraft symbol has moved towards the top left of the display. In this module, we have introduced you to the display modes available and some of the indications on the ND. You will also practice using the various display modes in the auto flight and navigation chapters, the FMGC trainer, and during your simulator sessions.